Ladies and gents, welcome back to another video, and in fact the first video not from my country of origin. We're not in England anymore, oh no. We are travelling out to Bulgaria to visit an indie game studio and see all that they have to offer. Full behind the scenes access, no strings attached and nothing off limits. We arrive there and we are met with some of the greatest views we have ever seen. A fantastic hotel that overlooks the entire city of Sofia. I also spend some time learning the local culture, such as learning to open a beer with a lighter. Took me a bit of time to get used to it, but I got the hang of it in the end and finally managed to get that golden liquid in my mouth.
You just go like that.
Okay. Oh, well, we'll give it a second go then. So it's kind of like into the knuckle almost, so that you're not pressing it on the finger.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, exactly. That's how you should go. Just press it a little bit.
Okay, that did pop it. There we go. But it worked. It worked.
Yeah. Nice.
It probably didn't help that we were at the top of a mountain with no other tools to actually help us at this point, but I managed. Big points to me. So we lounged around for the first day and took in all the fantastic sights that Bulgaria has to offer. And then on the next day, we got to work. We went and visited the BeastBurst office, and the guys there were fantastic. We first of all introduced ourselves by offering some British culture, some Yorkshire tea and some Cadbury's Dairy Milk and other varieties of Cadbury's. It seemed to go down really well. They gave us some bread that was made with cheese, and not gonna lie, fantastic. Apparently it's a Bulgarian tradition. I'll probably have the name on screen right now of what that actually is. I can't remember the name off by heart, but I'm sure Andy the editor will. And of course, how could I forget the food? Oh my god, the Bulgarian cuisine is fantastic. One bit of advice is, if you're not used to eating raw meat, do not eat raw meat. Public service announcement over. And of course, last but not least, we got full behind the scenes access of the BeastBurst Entertainment studio. Absolutely nothing off limits. These guys were so kind and welcoming that I genuinely can't do them enough praises in this video. You'll get to know a bit more about them coming up soon. Completely clear and full disclosure, BeastBurst Entertainment did pay for my flights out to Bulgaria, and they did pay for accommodation. Beyond that, there was no obligation to do anything or promote anything. They just wanted me out there to basically consult with them. Now, as many of you do know, BeastBurst Entertainment and Scars of Honor did previously sponsor a video on my channel. Now, they are the only game that I have ever allowed to sponsor on my channel, purely because I've been following them for a while before they even reached out to me. Now, you're probably wondering, if I was only out there to consult, then why is there a video? And that's a good question. So, I wanted to give you guys the perspective of another game company in the MMO industry that isn't me. My perspective can be quite easily tainted because it's my perspective, but someone else's perspective is a fantastic insight into the industry. Which takes us to our first interview of the video. Okay, so I'm joined by Mikhail, the one of two game designers, I believe?
Yes, at the moment.
At the moment?
For now.
Are there going to be more soon?
Well, our project is massive, I hope so.
Yeah, but it'll all fall back on you otherwise. So I've got some questions for you. Number one, how does a gameplay idea go from just being an idea to being an actual in-game feature?
Well, I would say it depends from feature to feature. Of course, our CEO has the main concept in his head, and the project is started by him, and the idea is originally his. So, in some senses and in some aspects of the game, he has a more clear idea, which is more fully developed in his head already. With his vision, he might even support with some materials for us. But in those cases, usually we'll get presented with his idea, his concept, and we will try to start off and go into the direction in which we wanted to go originally. Still, there's no hard restrictions or anything, so we're allowed to give our 2 cents and say, hey, we think, maybe this will affect another portion of the game, or because something is already affecting this portion of the UX, maybe we should change this slightly so that, you know, it's more in flow with the rest of the game and the rest of the design of all the other systems.
Keeping the theme and fine-tuning it.
Yeah, keeping everything just consistent pretty much. In other situations, we just know that we have to get things done and that we need a specific end result or something around that situation.
Yeah.
And we'll just start branching out and pitching our versions and our ideas, and then maybe together with my colleagues, sometimes we will just brainstorm together. Typically, initially, we like to start off the brainstorming together. Then at a certain point we might diverge into separate directions just to see where we as individuals are thinking and not to affect each other's ideas and to give each other enough breathing space for creative freedom as well. And then we will come back and converge back together, discuss what's good, what's bad, present it to project management and Vanillin, our CEO, and discuss which options might be possible, which seem like a good idea, which is feasible to be implemented even, and just start narrowing the scope from there.
Yeah, actually, it's really interesting that you say about splitting off to not influence each other's ideas. In Nightmare World, we did this with our alchemy system, like making potions. We all had very different ideas, and we were trying not to discuss it too much, to influence it, and we all went off and mocked up our own prototypes. And although we thought we were all on the same sort of page as, where we're going to go with this, we realized we weren't. Everyone has made vastly different systems that work completely differently to one another. And then we were like, okay, now what's the best bits of each of these? And we'll make another prototype and see how that works out. So that's a really good way to kind of iterate on a feature separately and not, like you say, not influence each other.
Yeah, you also end up with more results to choose from in the end. So if you're like uncertain about the direction you really want to take, I think that's a bit better to take this approach, because it provides you with more variety in your end results. So you have more options in the end, and you can say, okay, this has this and this positive side and this negative side, but the other one has more negatives. So, maybe we can even alter them afterwards and like make some amalgamation out of everything.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's the same as a 3D artist getting multiple different concept arts that are done by different people. It's like a basket of inspiration, which is it's fantastic when you're designing games.
I'd reckon so. I always envy the artists for being able to visualize their ideas, but I'm very bad with that.
I can visualize it, but I can't convey it properly. Yeah. But they can somehow convey my ideas better than I can. So
that's excellent.
I'm okay with that. How do you learn from the ideas and features of other games? Like, what they've done well, what's worth borrowing from the other game, maybe?
Yeah. Well, ever since I was honestly a little child and like stepping into the hobby of video games, maybe, the unluckiness of being in Eastern Europe and the financial situation here didn't allow everybody to have computers. So I spent a lot of time just online, just looking at, my favorite YouTubers playing the games or reviews of the video games or other content related to it. And also on the side, I would kind of track, I guess, the success of different games in my head and be like, okay, well, this is getting good public reception because A and B. This is getting bad public reception because X and Y and Z.
Yeah.
And I've managed to create a kind of like backlog in my head of like what games have been recepted well by the target audience, what not.
Don't do this list and a do this list.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say so because there's also exceptions. There's also games which fail and just hit the ground from the get-go, but still get a lot of things right.
Yes.
So individually, mechanic-wise, like it's very subjective if you're looking at specific mechanics. One person's gonna like one thing, one's not gonna like another thing.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at the major reception, it's a lot easier to get the general notion. However, still, it's not good to disregard a game fully, even if it's like flopped. Just look at the mechanics, see if they do something well. See if something improves a current problem or completely solves it. Like the most obvious one, like unnecessary clicks, of course. You want to get everything done as fast as possible.
You want to streamline like UI access and
Yeah, that's the most basic example of like...
And that's universal across...
What I'm trying to convey.
Yeah. Okay. That's a fantastic answer. Since the game has a similar audience to classic MMOs such as like WoW, how do you separate what was actually a good feature from what was just nostalgically a good feature?
Yeah, so this is a hard one, and I think it's a very unique situation with the MMORPG genre in particular, because so many people are clinging on to the so-called nostalgia, and I have never heard about this phenomenon in any other genre. Like, you don't go to a shooter, to the shooter competitive scene and hear people say, "Oh, I miss the nostalgia of like old shooters." You know?
Like Halo. You're just happy you've got a better Halo experience.
There are, I guess, like, maybe this is a bad example because for arena shooters, those are not as modern nowadays. But if you go to a different genre, you rarely see something like this. You rarely see people saying, "Oh, I miss the old days of this genre. It hasn't developed well. I'm nostalgic about it." In MMORPGs and the biggest games in the genre came out at a very early age when the internet was still developing.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were finding a lot of novelty in just spending time and hanging out with people online, something that is very hard to even avoid nowadays.
Yeah.
And in the current days, it's very hard to find a reason to just hang out in a game for several hours with your best buddies and just doing whatever. And then every now and then also organizing for the massive raids and the massive sections. Nowadays, you have so many games to pick from. You also have like a lot of chores. A lot of the people who have grown up.
I was just going to say this. One of the things that I love about the kind of passive time in game is like raiding, and that sometimes feels like a bit of a chore in the game. So that downtime of just hanging out and doing nothing is always, that's something I absolutely loved in MMOs more than anything.
So some of the MMORPGs go into a direction of having you do daily quests or weekly. You know, weekly is even a tame, okay version because in the span of a week, I'd imagine a normal person would have the time to
at least log in once.
Have a couple of hours to go on a raid. However, when you start going into daily missions and so forth, I think you're asking way too much from your players, and you're going to set back a lot of those who actually have a real life and stuff to do outside of the game. And that's going to hurt their user experience because they're going to see all the people progressing daily. And you either have to bypass that at some point with the freemium currency and start giving boosters and things. And at this rate, it's more of a job than a game. A game should be more enjoyable, and
you shouldn't be obligated to do something. And developers will always say, "Oh, but you don't have to."
Yeah.
And it's like in theory, no, I don't have to. But if I want to be competitive and play with my friends, I have to.
Yeah. And to just wrap back to the whole nostalgia thing as well. The idea from nostalgia is coming, I think, from a portion of the player base for their idea that they could just log in and spend hours upon hours in front of the video game with their friends, just hanging out and having good fun.
Yeah.
However, nowadays life is more busy, it's more demanding, there's a lot more video games to play, so the game should really just make the player experience as good as possible.
To keep it engaging.
Yeah, for the amount of time that he is actually in the game. He shouldn't have to spend the additional time doing meaningless things just to inflate his numbers.
Yeah, I think that's a really good topic, and that could be a whole discussion in itself. The games nowadays, they don't really have much interaction for players that they would go and do themselves, you know, like self-assigned tasks. So they have to kind of force this interaction usually with, like you say, the daily logging quests. And I think that kind of hurts the user experience because whereas you would probably log in every day, most people, and set yourself a little goal and go and do that, it doesn't feel the same when someone else is setting that task for you that you have to do.
It's a chore at that point. It's like my mom telling me go do the dishes.
You were going to do it anyway, but now that they've told you to do it, you're like, no, I don't think I will.
The rebellious teenagers coming
Exactly.
out.
I've definitely found that with a few games in particular. I used to play RuneScape from like, 15 years I played it, and I'd log in almost every single day without fail, and I'd set myself a goal. And that goal might just be go and hang out with friends at a random area and don't train any skills. And I might do that for like a month. And then you move on to a game like WoW where you don't really have that option. It's like, well, I'm going to log in today, but first of all, before I hang out with you, I've got to go and run 3 dungeons. I've got 4 daily quests to do, and I've got to go and kill this mount that's got a day cooldown for like a chance to get it as a rideable mount. And then I'll come and hang out with you.
Then I might be able to do what I actually want.
Exactly. It's like, get all that out of the way, and then it's fun time, by which time it's not so fun anymore. So, yeah, that's a good answer. What's your internal testing process on a new feature? Do you iterate in small steps and keep going back to the drawing board bit by bit, or do you design a whole feature, test it all as one thing, and maybe just like scrap and restart?
It really depends on, I think, the situation of internally of the company and how overloaded we are with work. Sometimes we have to just bang out a feature fully, and then we go back and start reiterating and testing and seeing what works and whatnot. Usually this leads to more work down the road, but we do this only when we have the developers very busy and they cannot start implementing right away, or they're very busy with another system they're still implementing. So in those situations, we try to present them with a full design, and then we have them comment on it. First of all, they always bring back the documents one time, and they're like, we can't read this. This is missing X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
So we always have to fill it out additionally.
Things that are in your head and not on paper.
Yeah, exactly. And things that we just don't know about how our systems are functioning technically. So they're telling us, okay, well, this works. It's just clearing out the gaps between the departments. But afterwards, in these situations, as I said, usually we bang out the feature, we give it to them. It leads to more work down the road. In a more optimal situation, where the workflow is not so heavy and everybody's a bit more relaxed and can give us, the designers, the dedicated time we need, which is not much. But yeah, we'd like to have the lead developers pitching in on our work as we're going on it, and giving us criticisms and telling us if we're spending time on something that's already been implemented, something that's already been designed, something that isn't needed right now and will be needed down the line months from now, etc., etc. And just try to have them active in the process. Yeah. It's still something we're trying to polish out and something we need to improve upon, but it will also, we believe as of now, it's been doing the best thing for us. Yeah, I mean, different situations require different processes, and different games, the teams work better with different processes across studios as well. That's definitely something I've found. But something interesting you brought up about letting us know if we're implementing something that's already being implemented. That sounds like a stupid thing to have to be told, but it happens quite often. For example, if you're designing a creature killing system and you've got to distribute the loot, you might start writing the function for that because it's attached to what you're making, but then you may find that someone's already written the code for that first, a different feature that will use it. And it happens all the time because you'll be programming away and someone will say, why are you using that function instead of the one we already made? And then that's when you're like, oh, I don't know. Yeah. Didn't know it existed. Also in our case in particular, and this is a specific thing I think for our studio, or maybe for individual studios it might occur as well, but our devs are very involved with the type of game we're making, and they're very aware of the standards or the absolute basics of them. So some of the things we start describing them and they're like, oh, but we've already implemented it and it's implemented exactly this way. Right. So this is just a blessing on our side on having amazing developers, I guess. Yeah. That's the beauty of having a team of passionate people, passionate about playing the games that you're making, because they have a very good understanding already from day one of how it should work, how they can slightly deviate from how it should work, and yeah, it's very helpful. Yeah. And last of all, what's your favourite feature that you either have implemented, want to implement, or that you've been told you can't implement? Well, I personally am mostly a gameplay hands-on type of person, so it's not going to be the story, it's not going to be any of the quests or anything like that. But the favorite things that I mostly like to work on are level design, and I would say also conceptualizing new systems and how they would also work. Yeah, the conceptualizing of new systems is always fun, because it's kind of like you can throw coding standards for this project to the side and just mess about with something. As long as it works, even if just in single player, in engine, you get to just throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. And yeah, I think that's possibly the most fun I've had on game projects. Just let loose. And you're kind of not held to the documentation either at that point. You can really just deviate from it and get creative. Yeah. just experiment everywhere.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to answer my questions. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Talking to Mikhail was absolutely fantastic. This guy is so full of energy and genuinely cares about his role of game design. And I think that probably shines through in the interview. Now, just to clarify, I hung out with these guys for 4 to 5 days, depending on who you ask. And this wasn't just an interview, you know, like, let's get hyped for the interview. These guys are genuinely passionate all around. They care about the role they play in this, you know, this grand picture of an MMO. And honestly, it's just really nice to see. But anyway, we're about to move on to Venlin, the CEO of BeastBurst. So let's get on to that.
So I'm here with Venlin, CEO of BeastBurst Entertainment, and in charge of Scars of Honor. And we're gonna talk a bit about the game.
Yeah. First of all, I really would like to thank you about taking your time flying here with us. I really appreciate it. I'm really looking forward to creating a really nice discussion about everything Scars of Honor, everything MMORPG that we can discuss.
Yeah, I mean, you're more than welcome. You've been very hospitable, as we found out over the last day. It's like Bulgaria's just. It's lovely. It really is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Better than my first experience, as we spoke about. So, do you want to talk a bit about what Scars of Honor is and how it kind of came to be?
Well, Scars of Honor is, before everything, it started as a dream. You, as being a programmer, you know how we love to create stuff, software, and afterwards games. Creating games is probably one of the best thing, the most fun thing that a programmer can do. And this is how it started with me. Started as an idea, as a dream. I used to spend time on this project and product pretty much every day after working in the official work hours, just to see how things are made, how 3D in general works, what is actually a 3D, what kind of systems you need to know to get them working together, and digging into the details of what requires to make a multiplayer game. But making a multiplayer game on the scale of MMORPG is on a whole another level. So basically, I spent around 4 years nearly, just learning all the different departments and how they come to work together with each other. And then just by, I don't know, by luck probably, I decided that it's time to share what I've done by myself for all these years, even though it's nowhere near a complete product or anything. I shared it. It had some small features inside, like casting spells, having some pretty basic combat damage over time effects, which we recently implemented into the new overhaul of the.
Oh right, so it's actually in the new version.
It's actually in the new version that is coming very soon on our upcoming test. There we're going to see plenty of good stuff. But back in the days, I was prototyping those systems in very rough way.
Just about works.
Yeah. Nowhere near the level of the integrations we have at the moment. But it was really fun because you're doing something and it happens and it's nice, and then you just learn new stuff and you go and you go and you go, and it had some shape and form of a game. I decided to share it, and the community feedback was amazing. It was really, really, really good. And then the place where I worked, I'm really close with the founders of these companies, and they were always telling me, look, you see what you've did, how the people took it. Imagine if you have 50 people around you to help you doing that. And that was basically the point where I just said, okay, now it's time to switch from hobby, from doing it something after work hours, to be the official work hours of your day. And this is how actually everything started for Scars of Honor. From then on, we just went into assembling the company, finding the right people for the right tasks, making a team, which is the most important thing. The communication is extremely important between the departments. This is where we focused, and on the communication with the community. And again, thanking you for being that strong connection with a huge and amazing community that you have, because you've provided a lot of feedback that was extremely valuable to us.
I'm glad you've seen it as valuable feedback, because that's all it's ever meant to be. A lot of people think it's just ripping on games that you know, for the fun of it, but a lot of it is, it's genuine feedback for like the industry as a whole.
Exactly. And also, I really don't find the negative feedback as something that is insulting or something that you should get mad at. Me, even though as a CEO of running a similar a company that is creating a similar project, MMORPG based, giving the worst feedback, the negative feedback, is probably the most beneficial stuff that you can receive, especially on the stage where we are still developing, where we're still making
and
the game.
You can correct those mistakes.
Exactly,
yeah.
as soon as we can. And listening you as a face of a big community that you have seen a lot of opinions, a lot of feedback you have written, you have done a lot of researches to make your videos, to gather this information. For us, it's just a gift, because we speak with you and we get it just like that.
Yeah, and I guess a benefit of this, being able to watch other people fail and me point out, and other people as well pointing out the failures that they've made. You're like, well, that seemed like a good idea last week.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe let's not do that. And,
Exactly.
You avoid the problem before it becomes a problem.
Exactly, and the root of the biggest issue of the MMORPG genre at the moment, I really believe that it is exactly this: the missing communication between the provider and the receiver. Provider is the company making the product, the receiver is the gamers all around the world that are going to enjoy and play. And if you don't know what they want, how are you going to provide whatever
like accommodate what they're after?
Exactly, exactly.
I think we were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
Like the example of old school RuneScape, where you've got all these other MMOs that are like, we don't know what our fans want, we don't know how to please them because we do this, and then they get angry. And then you've got RuneScape that polls every update and they add if it's over a 75%, you know, pass rate.
Yeah.
They don't have this problem to the degree that others do, because they're asking their community what they want and giving it them.
As I said, we as human beings, we tend to overcomplicate stuff that is actually not that important.
Yeah.
In the discussion, I gave you this example with when you go to the soup restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they have a lot of soups, but there is not the waiter or the chef who decides, Callum, you're going to eat chicken soup because this is what I decided. They come and they ask you, what kind of soups would you like to eat? And then you tell them. So basically, they get a feedback. Why we as a company that is making games, we should not take our feedback the way we should.
Exactly.
That's it.
And I think the reason a lot of MMOs have stopped taking feedback is because a lot of the decisions that they now make is based around their monetization, and it's to fit their microtransaction strategy, or to fit the dragging something out to make you buy something. So yeah, the people are annoyed at the content that goes into them usually, and it's by design. They want to create a problem and sell you the solution, essentially.
Exactly. This can be seen everywhere, and I completely agree with this statement. The thing is, I believe we can do something that basically can sustain itself just by providing what the community needs. If you provide fun content, if you provide content that makes you think about the game while you're not playing it, not auto-playing it, as we have seen recently, which is ridiculous. But if you think about the game while you're not playing, I think we've made our job, and I think we achieved it. Afterwards, everything will come behind monetization and stuff done the right way can be enough to sustain a company. We don't need to become company #1 in the world. There is no such requirement. We just need to do a good product. We just need to do something that people will enjoy.
Yeah, and I think you're definitely on the right path to doing that, with following the kind of core design principles of get something prototyped, get it working. Is it fun?
Get feedback.
Get feedback. Back to the drawing board if it's not. Whereas a lot of games now, a lot of MMOs are just copy-pasting a template of whatever the last successful MMO was. And that's why we've got so many WoW clones.
Exactly, sir. And on top of that, the worst thing that I see, and I don't understand why studios are keep on doing this, they announce the product once it's done.
Yeah.
So I've made it. I spent 5 years, 10 years of making some a project, and I have never reached out for feedback. This is just ridiculous. Why? What's the reason of doing that? Yes, of course, somebody can steal some sort of ideas here and there. It's inevitable. But the chances of success of your project are just... You're flipping a coin if you throw it without getting any sort of feedback.
Yeah. And I think the reason that a lot of companies don't like show off their product until the very end is because, again, like I said, the monetization strategy, they don't want that to be changed through feedback. And they just generally, there's been a kind of bad stigma around like early access and beta and pre-alpha especially.
Yes.
So they try and avoid that, I think.
If I have to be honest, I have been always nervous when we announce tests about Scars of Honor, because Scars of Honor is not finished product. There is a lot of stuff that needs to be polished, changed until it reaches the level of quality that we want to reach. And I was kind of nervous showing really rough and unfinished product to the community, because I was not sure how they are going to understand. Are they going to understand what stage this product is and what they should evaluate?
Yes.
But I was extremely well surprised. The feedback was extremely spot on stuff that was filtered into showing an exact problem. Not some minor stuff that it's obvious that it's not final and it's going to be...
Like how your texture's missing.
Yes, or animation is just swappy and not looking well. So this makes me think that we as a MMORPG community whole together, because of the lack of good titles, good place to hang out together and just think about the game when we're not freaking there, makes me think that we grew up into being a really intelligent community. Because, as I said, I was afraid, but everything went filtered. Like, community said, this is the important stuff. This is what you should do. Keep on. And they're supporting. So basically...
It's good. I mean, the issues that you'll find is when you've got the non-MMO community coming in to test an MMO.
Yes.
And the best example I can give is Valheim. That was in early access, and it was almost feature complete.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have come to expect that from MMOs, and that's just not the case.
Completely agree, but still, Valheim was one of the good titles that we have seen recently.
Definitely.
One of your latest videos, you're completely right to say that in the past years, what was the game, the new AAA game that we played, enjoyed? None. And why is that? Because, as you said, everything changed. Everything is now focused on just making money and forgetting the root of this whole genre, this whole purpose of why these studios exist.
Yeah, and I think in terms of just existing to make as much money as possible, I feel like they've tried to shorten the lifespan of their games. You'll see a new game come out, milk a load of money.
Yeah.
It'll be gone within a year, and then the sequels coming out.
Exactly a formula of going down the road, downhill as much as you can, because it just does not create any sort of a hype for ongoing hype, etc. about the game and stuff. Yeah.
No, it's definitely true. I mean, announcing a game early and showing it off is the best thing you can do, especially if you're getting early access.
Exactly.
Early feedback is the most important feedback, because think of it like building a brick wall, right? And somebody doesn't review the first 2 layers of it, and you've just now built the rest of the wall. You're not going to go back and change, well, not easily go back and change those bottom bricks.
Yeah, exactly. And when we're making a new product, as Scars of Honor, and as every company should do, when you're making a new product, the first thing that you should do is make a research. What are the problems of the field where my product is going to be present? And there are several big problems with MMORPG in general. One of the biggest, as we discussed, is the failure of onboarding new players.
Couldn't agree more, yeah.
This is one of the biggest issues. And none of the big titles at the moment are doing anything towards resolving this.
No.
It's actually becoming even worse. The people, the children that are playing these games at the moment, the most famous ones are games that are easy to get in. They provide you as fast as possible rewards.
Yeah, just like quick dopamine hits constantly.
Yes, constantly, all over the place. Nobody is going to spend a month or two in leveling up a character anymore.
No.
So we need to change. That's obvious.
Yeah.
We need to ask ourselves why we should do that system in that way. We should look at our inspirations, and we should see where they're failing, because there is always, in every product on the earth, there is some strong sides and some weak ones.
Yeah.
If we focus on resolving the weak ones, this is how we become as a product unique, and this is how we attract people being tired of these weaknesses they have seen in different projects. And I believe having the proper game design of making systems, making gameplays which are not perfectly handled, even though in a, I don't know, some sort of a meaningful resolution, having them done in the proper way and receive the proper feedback for them is just the formula to succeed. We were addressing recently how the tanks should act, why the tanks are not that much played as a role in the MMORPGs, tanks and healers as well. And the answer was pretty simple. They're not fun.
Yeah.
Why you're going to play a game that is not fun? Basically, you need to resolve the biggest issue, make it fun.
Yeah. And like I said when we were chatting earlier, I've played pretty much every healer in every MMO you could imagine, you know, the top like 3 titles. And yeah, I don't usually play the typical healers. I play things like Mistweaver monks in World of Warcraft because they're just different, and
exactly
that's what draws people to it. They don't want to just stand there just throwing heals at people, and the only real skill being how long can you go without your mana bar running out, which is no fun to anyone.
Yeah, just to go there, to be afraid that your mana is going to end, and this is how your whole gameplay ends.
Yeah, because you're useless when that's over.
So we need a change.
Yeah.
And we need it now.
Like a better management system even, just a better replacement for mana, for example, would solve a lot of the issues. And then on top of that, having a synergy between damage and healing on a healer. It makes leveling up more fun as well.
Exactly, and the other stuff that we were addressing is exactly the level up.
Yeah.
Basically, if it is some sort of a gateway, a gate between you and the end content, why? Why should we restrict you and you're entering the game right now? Our most important time with you as a new player is your first several minutes, hours of that game. If I don't provide you enough purposes for you to be a player of that game, in the first several hours, you're not going to last and stand for the amazing end content that I'm going to provide.
Exactly. That's the bit that's always kind of completely baffled me with MMOs and their progression. The concept of endgame being the game, I think that's a better way to put it. Endgame isn't endgame, it's just the game. And everything before it is kind of like a loading bar up until the end. And you're completely right. If you're starting at the start of that loading bar and it's boring, and it's just a time gate to get there, that just tells the player that your game isn't that interesting.
Exactly.
And everything's focused at the end because you can only really nail down that bit.
Times are just different and we need to adapt.
Yeah.
If we search back in history and try to nail down one of the biggest factors of why World of Warcraft became so big, there is one thing that really stood out. They just took an MMORPG. They was inspired by an MMORPG. They took it out. They made it more accessible.
Yeah.
They made it more accessible, easier. So this is just how the time goes, and we need to be with it in order to be relevant. The current MMORPGs, they never addressed these.
No.
Somehow they did it, but they also went so far away from the root of the MMORPG as a genre. Because right now, if you go inside, everything happens so fast. You level up. So basically, MMORPGs was known of this struggle to achieve something, and the moment when you achieved it, it was amazing.
Felt amazing. Like
Yes.
I remember getting my first fire cape in RuneScape. That was like a huge moment for me.
Yes.
And yeah, it's really odd the way they've changed with that now, because a lot of games are now even selling level boosts to the maximum level, which that's just admitting failure.
Yeah, creating a problem and solution for it.
Exactly.
Just to take out your money. So if we take out the good stuff that made us play these games and just incorporate it in a modern way, which allows these people to enjoy and see that MMORPG is fun.
Yeah.
There is no MMORPG as a new player starting right now, you know nothing about MMORPG. You walking inside the game, there is nothing in that game to make you feel that it's fun.
Yeah.
Back in the days, it was really amazing when you hit somebody with your ability and it strikes a big number. And it's like, oh my god, I did 10k of damage. And you know what happened, but the target is still there, or probably died in rare occasions, but it's still there. And even the player against you receiving this damage is amazed by you and what you did. And he wants to be like you. He wants to be strong as you. In current state, you go inside, you play PvP, you die, and you don't know from what you've died.
Yeah, I think there's a really good quote. Is it from The Incredibles? If everybody's super, nobody's super.
Exactly.
And I feel that games are trying to now throw so much equality into it that it diminishes any achievements that you actually achieve.
Exactly.
And I think that's really unhealthy for a lot of games. Again, a lot of games that are doing level scaling from any level to any level. Well, if a level 1 can play at the same sort of damage per second as a level 90, where's their incentive to level up? And
nowhere.
There's none, exactly. And it's just kind of, again, a diminishing achievement for those that are at maximum level, because why did they bother?
Exactly. And speaking about just pure damage number that you have seen, this is representative of the combat, how it feels, how it makes you play the game. One of the other big reasons why we played these games was the rewards.
Yeah.
And not that much of a reward of a just ding, level up. It was not the fun.
No.
The fun was playing at the end game, receiving some unique items.
Getting a rare mount or...
Exactly. That was the bread and butter. That was the interesting stuff. So let's just remove that gate. Let's provide ability for many people to get inside, provide them nice looking combat, interesting, to make you feel that you want to play and continue, even though when you're getting ganked, to be fun.
You rage quit for an hour and then you come back twice as strong.
I need to get back. I need to get back. Then bring on the amazing feeling of receiving a reward that is rare. Not everybody is epic. Not everybody is full of legendaries.
But everybody could be.
Yes.
Just not all at the same time.
Yes, but we need to create a flow which makes you play the game as much as you can for a longer period to receive this one. But this should not be painful.
No. No. And something else that you mentioned, well, some of the other team members mentioned, were kind of like player-made achievements, you know, completing their own
journeys.
And that, again, struck a chord with me thinking about RuneScape, where, again, the fire cape, it became this community challenge. What's the lowest level you can get this at? Because the intended level was about 115, 120. And then you get a level 80 that's like, well, I've done it. And then someone else is like, right, well, you know, trying to leapfrog each other in the lowest level. And it's now got to the point where somebody has achieved it at level 3, the starting combat level in RuneScape. And it's one of those things that the community would never imagine They were like, you know, 50's the theoretical lowest we can get, and then.
But that's fun.
Yeah, that's fun.
That's
not
challenging.
limiting by. Skill should be the limiting factor, not just
Exactly.
you need to be level X, Y, Z to do this. Like the Fire Cape, you could enter at any level, but the challenge was the gate.
Exactly. And when we have enough of challenges, this is what makes us play the game. This is why we decided to go and create our arenas, which you're going to see. in the
Yes, I'm
upcoming
excited.
tests. Yes,
I'm
they're going to
excited.
be a PvP, and it's going to be even ranked.
Oh,
Why we are doing this? If you open YouTube, your favorite place of residence,
yes, my home.
yeah, you're going to see that in arenas, back in the days when we had 5 versus 5 in World of Warcraft, we were highly inspired by World of
Yes.
Warcraft. We're not hiding this one, but we're going to provide a lot of changes.
Yes, I can already see a lot of the changes.
You've seen a lot of YouTubers playing in a mode that they created themselves. What was that mode? 5 on the one side, 5 on the other.
1v1 at the time.
1v1?
Yes, Swifty and Soda Poppin started that.
They just show you the gameplay.
Yeah.
These people made you the gameplay. Why haven't you incorporated
Why haven't you
in
done
the
it?
game?
Do you want to know something? I believe recently World of Warcraft have released a mode called Brawl, which is exactly that. I might be, it might not be exactly, but I believe it's very similar to that. So it's like, it's taken, what, 8-9 years?
I don't know if it's something in some of the classic versions, because on the latest ones there is nothing similar. The latest iteration was Soul Shuffle, which is
Yeah, I believe it was
completely-
classic.
Yeah,
that it was
it's
added to, which is funny because that's
Speaking about PvP, we also decided that we should take our own overview of how arenas should look like.
Yeah.
What kind of modes we should have inside. Some of those modes were so obvious that they were all over YouTube, and you can go and see what people enjoy to play and just incorporate it in the game as having these 5 versus 5 modes, where just the first one starts, whatever dies, then the next one comes until the whole team is dead.
like a gladiator battle almost. Yeah.
And end of the day, it becomes really impressive, really nice. Imagine you being the first one and you just destroy the whole enemy team. It just feels amazing. It's just amazing. This is what we want to achieve, to give this vibe. Also, we iterated over the how can we make a viable and interesting 1 versus 1 mode. And we said it's going to be really hard to balance if you do that. Although it's really easy to participate in such a form of fight, because it just requires you to.
You're not
to be
waiting
there.
on other people.
Yeah.
It's just you go in, and as long as there's one other person.
And also it strips out the fact that your arena teammate can be a brainless.
Yeah, you've not got
individual.
someone walking around with a finger stuck up their nose. You just-
Exactly. So we come up to the conclusion that why don't we make a mode where you just compete against your own exact type? If you are a warrior barbarian, let's go and play against warrior barbarians. Let's put a rating on it. So end of the day, you say, I'm the best warrior barbarian. I'm the best wisdom mage, for example. And it's just fun.
Yeah.
It's just fun. Afterwards, of course, you have the obvious, like, create a team and go with the team and get the rating, as everyone have seen and know in all those type of PvP activities. On the other hand, when speaking about battlegrounds, we also wanted to incorporate something that is viable, that is also in a way of unique. I really hated the situation where MMORPGs requires you to spend like a month or two to get decent gear, and then you somebody was there 2 months before you because you just was on a summer vacation or just went to do some duties, and you come back and you realize that everybody ganks you now, even though they
You've fallen behind and there's no way to catch up.
Exactly. Even though you have a way a better skill in this game than these people. So how can we resolve this one? I'm not saying the method of getting the gear and play with it in the PvP activities in the battleground is bad, but there are plenty of games which are only focused around the skill that you have. There are repeatable content matches. Examples, there are a lot of them. All these League of Legends matches, they are just that way. So we decided to incorporate not a method, but a form of battlegrounds which allows you to get inside, get stripped naked of your gear, take out a default gear for for your class, and just go and play with it. As you play, you get some currencies. Is it going to be gold? We are still not focused, but the main aspect is that we haven't really focused what is going to be.
Yeah, but you'll get some reward.
Yes, but that reward, end of the game, is gone for you. So basically, if you want to experience that one again and be equal, just skill-based, you go and you do that. We'll give you some sort of rankings, like how many games you've played, some sort of titles that you're going to receive from that form of PvP activities in the battlegrounds. But this is not going to be our rated and mostly focused form of PvP.
So it's going to be like short-term, quick progression that resets at the end of said game.
Exactly.
That's actually really interesting.
Only skill-based.
Yeah. Everyone starts on the same footing, and the strong get stronger based off skill. Yeah,
exactly. On the kills, etc. As it goes, incorporated, provide that for in the same map on the battleground. We have at least two modes. One is play with the preset gear and get everything recycled end of the round. The other one will be the progressive one, which is basically your gear that you're
long-term progression.
Yes. Yeah. So it's up to you where you want to participate.
I really like that idea, actually.
Yeah, we thought long and hard how can we...
I mean, it sounds like such a simple idea because MOBAs have been doing this for years, and it works.
Exactly.
And MOBAs are just kind of a battleground that resets. So yeah, no, that makes total sense.
Exactly. This is the as I said earlier, answers are in front of our eyes, and they're there, and they're just provided by the community. Just go and see what they play.
We want to do this, or we're already doing this as our own made-up game mode. Yeah,
let's do it.
It's an absolute no-brainer. Makes complete sense to do it that way.
Of course, MMORPG should not only rely only on PvP activities. We have thought about PvE. How can we make it? How can we make it unique? We decided that we should allow the players to participate with their friends, no matter the level the friend is. So the whole content inside the dungeon will scale towards you as a player. You can be level 5, your friend can be level 12, for example, or 15, doesn't matter. It will scale towards the player itself. On the other hand, we really love puzzles, riddles, and all sorts of this stuff.
That is one of my favorite things in games, like the subtle puzzles. Like even if they're not really put right in front of you, and you're not told that it's there. I love these mysteries. Like I'm trying to think of a good example. Was it? It'll come back to me. I think it might have been EverQuest. They had a sword in the game that was completely accessible. You could get it. And they forgot they'd added it in as like an option, and eventually someone found it 14 years later. And it's one of those things that it's trash now because it's like level 12 sword, but no one else has it.
Yeah,
it's like
abstract.
Yeah, so somebody found it and they were walking around with it for a week, and everyone's like, "How have you got that? Like, it looks really cool. It's useless, but looks really cool." And sometimes that's all it needs to be, cosmetic.
Completely agree. And when you said that this is another one of our gaming design philosophies, we haven't shared it yet officially. We use you again to show some of the big news, and there will be more in this video. So stay here and watch.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot.
Yeah. Spells, abilities inside Scars of Honor will be obtained also via wood. So basically, when you go in a dungeon and you fight against some Yeti that is casting some kind of frost spell, specific frost spells, there will be a slight chance for you as a frost mage
to get a drop of a scroll.
Oh, that's cool.
That is providing you the spell itself in order to learn. On the other hand, we'll be having a lot of hidden spells. Like your class will have like on the middle, at the top of the bottom of a lake, hidden a treasure containing a key. Then you get this key, but it says nothing for what you need this key. Then you need to go in some dungeon, crawl on top of a specific ledger, and then there will be a treasure for you to open. There will be a scroll. So basically, we will create new spells, we will incorporate them, and we are, unless they are so obvious, like this is the must-have that you need to have with your class, there will be no guidance. No guidance what you can have as a class. They will be hidden all over the place, and they will require different stuff, different puzzles to solve in order to get them. And when you said somebody's looking next to you, and from where did you get that? How did you capture that? There will be, I'm not going to tell you, or I will create a video about this one, how to get it. And this is also, I always say, love this saying, throw one stone, hit two birds.
Yeah. I mean, World of Warcraft did it for me with when they added the toy box in, I think it was Mr. Pandaria, and they had things like a clamshell at the bottom of a lake that you could only get to if you got water breathing potions, and only if you were a race that had, extra water breathing, all of that sort of stuff, to get like this really odd toy that just, when you right click it, you stand in a clown in a bikini dancing or whatever.
Exactly, but the root of it is the mystery.
Yeah.
MMORPG is the strongest in that. This is the power of an MMORPG as a genre.
Yeah, you don't need to always guide the player. Sometimes discovering things or just putting two and two together, that's more rewarding than just being told, walk into that cave, click this thing, and
go kill 5 wolves, bring me 5 carrots, and here is your
and here's your sword of the gods.
Legendary.
Your legendary sword.
So this is one of the different approaches that we really want to take care. Also keep up close to the roots, but try to modernize the game as it should feel like in the recent years. This said, these are probably the biggest news that we're going to bomb out in your channel. And as I said, it's honor for me to do it together with you, because you are one of the biggest YouTubers who covers and do as much as you can for the RPG genre. And I feel like here is the right place to do this one. When we started Scars of Honor, from the beginning of it, we always thought, how can we allow more people to access our game? And the answer was always inside our pockets. But our intention was always focused on make a good experience on the PC. It was always the main platform that we targeted. But as an MMORPG, we need as much as players as we can. You playing on your PC before you go to school, and then you need to go into the tram and take it from there on a cup. You can open up your phone and you can play Scars of Honor truly cross-platform.
Yeah, that was something that I'd got a question to ask you about that. And like I said to you earlier, I always felt that the reason you'd gone with that kind of art style, I felt there was a reason behind it. And I figured it might have been cross-play, with, whether it be mobile or console or something. So that's interesting
You nailed it. You perfectly nailed it. The whole idea of keeping these whole poly counts, etc., was exactly the idea of allow as much as possible devices to have this game running in a way it should look and feel, and not be like too heavy for the device. The whole difference between the PC version of the game and the mobile will probably have, especially in the beginning, some sort of a restriction, especially on the competitive ranking.
Yes,
because it won't be fair, so to say.
This is what we saw Fortnite having to implement very quickly. Was the option, at least, to be playing with the same platform. Yeah,
exactly.
And I think that's pretty essential, like you say, because of the fairness. I mean, me and you have got pretty modern phones, like the new Galaxies, but for people who've got a slightly maybe little bit older Galaxy, they've got no chance of.
Exactly, and on top of that, we're always trying and testing our system and how the game looks on the crappiest phones out there. So basically, the questions will be: is it going to run on my Motorola, etc., etc.? Yes, it's going to run.
I mean, there's something very interesting, and I've done a bit of like app development in the past. Is the Play Store in particular with their auto testing as well. So you don't need to have a wide variety of phones anymore. You can put it on there and it self play tests the performance, bugs, crashes, and it'll say to you, "Here's 45,000 phones that it can play on." Exactly. And of course, the one that you were going to test on isn't on that list anymore. But
like it or not, this is the future, and it's up to us to decide: are we going to be in it?
Yeah.
And if we want to do something in general as an MMORPG genre, we should give it a helping hand in a way or form. We as a studio, we sat down and we said, look, we want to make it accessible to everyone. That's why our game will be completely free to play. There will be no requirements for you to buy the game, to pay monthly subscription, etc. The only type of accounts that are paid at the moment, which are going to be gone when the game is released, are supported and unlocked accounts. The whole intention of these types of accounts is to support the project as it goes on, and also to provide you access to the tests that we do, because all these people which are supporting, those are the filtered people that really get to know what is actually cooking, what is actually happening, and they are the people who can say, who can filter the feedback from this is not really relevant to be given as a feedback, compared to the character is not moving, for example, which from a big of a difference in the form of the feedback.
Yeah. So on the topic of monetization, which I'm sure everyone loves hearing about, in every shape and form, what is the intended plan for monetization for Scars of Honor?
Basically, what we want to do is strictly focus on the cosmetics, but when we say that, we want to actually stick with it. If you want to go that way, that means you have to provide a lot of varieties. Yes. Also, you will have to create a problem and solution for it, like it or not. The question is, what kind of a problem you're creating? Because creating you the requirement for you to level up and then selling you levels is one. On the other hand, because you're obligated in order to play. But to look good, we decide ourselves, do I feel okay to look like this? Is it good enough? And it does not put you in any competitive advantage or disadvantage against anyone else. So said that, strictly cosmetics. And one of the biggest difference that we are going to create in order to create a valuable stream of revenue is our appearance system. In our appearance systems, we are not going to sell you a very good looking armor set, which makes you unique, glossy and stuff, and shiny and cool. You're really nice. All the appearances, you'll be able to obtain them in the game, with the only caveat that in order to change the appearance, you have to spend appearance points, which are going to be paid.
Right, okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess that makes sense. That kind of counters a problem as well I was going to bring up with cosmetics. And we saw this a lot in RuneScape 3, for example, when they started selling all of the cosmetics. When you do that, anytime an artist makes a fantastic looking set of armor and a developer comes over and he's like, oh, I want that to be my quest reward. CEO bursts through the door. He's like, no, that's too good looking. That's going on the cash shop. And then the quest reward becomes something you don't care about.
Yeah.
And you're not questing for anything really anymore.
Well, actually with us, you're going to obtain your appearance. If you obtain it, there is a very good chance for you to pay to have it, but there will be no situation where all the good stuff will going to be walked in our shop. and there will be the situation where there will be no situation where somebody will come and say, everything good looking is in their shop, otherwise you look like crap.
Yeah. And I agree with that way of doing it.
Yeah,
because
we need to find a way.
exactly, it's been done for so long now, and so many people have got complaints about it. I mean, whenever, even like transmogrification, when that was added to like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy, you knew it was a matter of time until they were going to sell you some cosmetic that's just infinitely better looking than anything. And then that also snowballs into a problem of, well, that person has now bought that cosmetic. We need to create something flashier and flashier. And that's when you end up with like a chest plate that's got dragon wings coming out of it and like particle effects. And it stops fitting the theme of the game you built.
Exactly, and completely agree. And every company has the resources of art team making these amazing looking assets, etc. When you focus this team, this resource of your company, doesn't matter how big it is, it always has a limit of X people doing that. You're taking some part of it, if not the whole part of it, and you say, guys, we make our salaries from making new and good looking armors. You need to go and do that, not go and make a better game, but make more sellable content. So basically, that's not the idea. When you make the game to be enjoyable, to have more people inside, there is a sustainable way in future for you to get more, or at least put out the same, rather than just make one big hit of money income and then just go
And
straight down.
I said this exact thing to the Nightmare World team because we had a big discussion around this. And an example I gave was, let's say we've made a sword that looks really cool. Now, we could put that on the cash shop for $20.
Yeah.
Or we could make it a kind of achievement reward for a very long task that is a very skill-based task.
Yes.
That player is going to be paying for 3 months maybe to work towards this grand thing. You've made the money in the same way, but you've not created the snowball effect.
Exactly.
And you can do it again and again and compound all of these rewards.
Exactly.
And they feel better after. I mean, you feel great immediately after, pulling the card out, paying for an item, then you don't feel so great afterwards. You don't have that issue with this. You feel fantastic. You finally got the thing you were aiming for.
Exactly. And in our previous chat that we had earlier, when I was showing you the other ways of income, how are we going to make all these amazing stuff actually sustain itself, because everything sounds too good, but end of the day, how are we going to sustain it? How are we going to make things happen? I shared with you our additional experiment that we are going to release in the upcoming test now for first time, the so-called sub-race Nordrim, which is basically a Viking looking, bigger, stronger human being that is going to be locked between a fee, which allows you to unlock it and use it. How Nordrim is going to be different from the regular human, just by the looks.
Yeah.
There will be no different classes for Nordrim, no different passive abilities, nothing. Just looks. Because it's bigger, it's stronger, it fits more the warrior archetype, and you go with it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to separate it, because I know a lot of people will probably say, well, why isn't that just a customization option in the human? But then they're not really customizations that would fit the base human. So
Exactly.
I see why you've done it that way as a subclass, a sub-race rather. And no, that's a very, very good way to do it. And to be honest, I think with it being just cosmetic, people aren't going to be unhappy with that as a paid.
It does not provide you more strength, armor.
Just look at it different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And think of it in a concept way. When you create some race, and that race is represented by several classes, took, for example, the orc that we have in the moment. It fits the warrior archetype and look and feel perfectly. But when we speak about witch, this big and bulky orc does not really fit that much.
No. I think that's a problem that a lot of games have. It's kind of a twofold problem. A lot of people don't like race-locked classes. And then you've got other people who are like, well, that just looks silly. As that.
Exactly.
Like you've got this big, tough orc guy just running around casting fairies at people. And yeah. So no, it makes sense provided that there's enough races that have access to that class, and especially that it's balanced on both factions. That
Exactly.
if there's 2 paladins on one, there's 2 paladins on the other.
It's simple mathematics end of the day.
Otherwise, you'll be swaying people to one, potentially to one faction, just based on their class choice.
So this is how we are going to monetize Scars of Honor. These are our honest intentions of how we should do these things. And by the feedback that we are receiving from the community, I think this is the right way, and I believe it's self-sufficient.
Yeah. I think it could be, yeah. I think that you've kept such a tight ship with team and with the scope of the game, most importantly. It's quite easy to overscope a game and realise, well, we've now overpromised and we're going to under-deliver. Whereas from some of the secret things you've shown me, it seems like you're trying to under-promise and over-deliver. So
Exactly.
And that's the right way to do it. I think you're going the right way about it.
There is no way for you to screw things up when you haven't promised.
Exactly, yeah.
Again, really simple stuff.
If they get a new feature, it's slightly broken, but they weren't promised it, well,
Yes.
hey,
It's just an extra.
it's a bonus, yeah.
You compare it to just over-promising everything and nothing working.
The best the last MMO you'll ever play.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, over-promising in Kickstarters has kind of killed the scene for Kickstarter.
If I have to be honest, Kickstarter is probably the worst thing that ever happened to them.
Yes, I agree.
This put us as a legit company that wants to do things right in really a bad situation. Because when there was so much scam before we as a company, it just creates a scar on the community that is not beneficial for the community, for the genre. For us to have the ability to have the strong back of the financial support that we can get from the community is no way nearly easy as it was for the bullshit scam projects that were 2 people making everything and took a lot of money for doing nothing.
Yeah, we see so many projects. I mean, Kingdoms of Chronicles of Illyria. I can't remember what it's even called now. Kingdoms of Illyria now, I think. That, as an example, was just a mess, and it's still an ongoing mess. That the game's kind of being undeveloped as time goes on.
I even was struck there, and I don't know whatever is happening. I just saw the damage that they did.
Raising, I think it's $14 million for nothing. None of it existed. Just smoke and mirrors, and here we are.
This is why this was also a biggest driver for me of why I wanted to share as much as I can of Scars of Honor in the early, so rough and unpolished stages of the game, because everyone was going into Kickstarter giving dreams. I'm going to be the next big title.
The WoW killer. That's always the one where if I see that in a description or title, it's just like.
And when they say we're going to have millions of players next week, yes, it just does not make sense when you think about it. Even there is no reasonably priced, even though high-end computer on the planet that is going to have millions of human models on your screen, even though being wall poly. Even the consumer cannot handle this. Now, not speaking about you, that there are millions
and the server could,
Yes, let's pretend that the networks work in different ways.
You're sitting on a MacBook, you're not going to have 1 million players rendered on your screen. It's just not possible. It's not possible, exactly. But we as game developers know this, which I think is why it's so frustrating to us that people are buying into it. Like, they sell them on a dream and deliver
exactly. But then you suffer as a developer because you come legit and you want to do the things, and you cannot promise unrealistic stuff. No, there is no way in the current technology to achieve this one. Yes, you can improve some areas of it. You can provide If the limit was 1,000, you can provide 1,500. But that's a huge achievement that you did.
Yeah.
Just in the example. But going from 100 to a million is ridiculous.
Yes, absolutely.
Of a jump and coming out of nowhere with a team of 2 people. So this is why, and I'm extremely thankful to you that you took your time to come and see that there are people in BeastBurst working on actual.
Yes. There's a lot of people working, and
most of them even being remote.
Yeah, most of them being remote. You know, even having them just come in, even if it's just for today, non-remote, just so I can chat with them and have be shown around. No, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's I mean, I've been here 2 days of the 5 days, and already it's been a great experience. Yeah.
So that interview with Venlin is possibly one of the most refreshing conversations that I've ever had. And in fact, just talking to someone who works on MMOs and has the same sort of visions as you is just, it's fantastic. I'm really confident in Venlin's ability as a CEO and as a leader of this project. I think this project's going to go a long way under his leadership. Just chatting about things such as microtransactions and the onboarding experience for new players it's great because he's spot on. We're very much on the same wavelength where new players to new MMOs are not being onboarded in the way that they expect to be or the way that they should be. And things need to change. And hopefully between the two of us with our separate games that we're developing, we can hopefully tackle that problem or start to tackle that problem of onboarding players, especially onboarding new players to the genre. Moving on, we talk to Evo, the lead artist of Scars of Honor. And honestly, this is an interesting interview, talking about things such as visual storytelling and pipelines, things that you may have heard of, but you may not understand the logic behind them. So let's get into that.
I am joined by BeastBurst Entertainment's lead environment artist, Evo. Do you want to tell us a bit more about what you do as a lead environment artist?
Well, it's a really interesting question because, I've been with BeastBurst Entertainment since almost the beginning. So, I've been through, the moments where we were really few people, and now we've grown quite a bit, especially over the last maybe year and a half, and we're actually quite a big, strong team. So
the office is a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be when I came here. I was expecting like 4 dudes around a table, just kind of, sharing PCs, but you've got a full-on office that people will see in the rest of the video.
Definitely, a bit more than I expected. It's, just seeing that development in the different departments, like we actually have different departments. We started with just a few folk that kind of do whatever they can, and we've grown so much that we've actually have an actual structure. We have a lot of people involved. We've grown internationally. So in general, I've been doing a ton of different stuff from the moments where we were just a small startup company.
Had to wear many hats at the beginning.
Yeah, exactly. And even now, there are still, some adjustments that you have to make, especially when new people are coming in. We have the different teams developed. We have a ton of people in them, especially I think the last additions were in our concept art department. So insane talent there. Like, I'm just so impressed of those people, and the ideas that they generate. Like, it's even just a couple of people can speed up the processes so much.
Yeah.
In terms of background, I was doing architecture before that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it actually translates really well when you bring that into world building and design.
I can imagine.
It's quite helpful. After that, I went for a year of game dev school, and I ended up teaching there, and I'm currently teaching there as well. It's been 2 years. I'm doing environment art course, and all of this kind of feeds into a really interesting end product, because like you're mix and matching different environments, different spheres of actual, real world production stuff.
Yeah, like different disciplines within your area.
Exactly. And just, I think, teaching has, enhanced my arsenal quite a bit, because now I have to talk to a lot of people and communicate ideas in a really good and well translatable manner. Especially with us growing internationally so much. We have people from Turkey, from Spain, from Portugal, all around Europe. And it definitely helps a lot, and I think it adds a lot of value to the team. Like, it sort of makes you be able to invite more people.
It's more open and
more
easy
inclusive,
to introduce people into it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And in short, was doing architecture for real life, and then I started doing architecture for not so real life.
That's really cool, because, like you say, those are really transferable skills from real life into a game, essentially. And yeah, you don't see that too often in other disciplines, really. Like, especially with coding, there's not too much transferable stuff from other disciplines into gaming. A lot of it's relearned, but that's a good example of something that just is directly transferable.
Oh, yeah, and it's sort of, because, we are doing a stylized game, a lot of fiction in there, a lot of magic, a lot of, different creatures and, special environments and shiny stuff. It actually, the knowledge of how things are produced and manufactured and put together keeps it really grounded and believable. Like, it's really makes this step really easy to take.
Yeah, that's a good point as well, because going from doing it in real life, where it's got to abide by the laws of physics, I guess I bet it's really freeing to do it in a game where you've got that, what's the word, artistic liberty that you can take with it and really mix it up a bit for the fantasy elements.
Yes, and it's just a matter of visual communication, because when you're making environments, especially when you're making something that you're aware of, if you're building a city that has certain functions, you go into that city with certain expectations that you've come across just because you're alive and you're going to your local store, or you're going to the barber shop or whatever, and we're really trying to introduce this sort of familiarity within the unknown, just based on regular laws and just how your perception about what a city is, or what a town is, or what a place actually is, like what makes a place the place.
Yeah, that's interesting, because players do have, whether they realize it or not, an expectation of what that city is going to be, or what that town or village will have in it. And a lot of games such as New World really kind of failed on that part, where you'd go into a town expecting to find regular amenities like a store here or a bank there, and it just wouldn't be there, or at least where you thought it would be.
Oh yeah, in terms of layout, there's a ton that goes into that. Just where you put big stuff. Even if we're talking just about the shape language of the approach to the city, the shapes of the buildings, the shapes of buildings with different purposes, and just in general how you lay those down and how they interact with each other. Because in some spaces, you actually need more time to walk around for you to find something, and that's something to make sense. If we're talking about a district in a city where people manufacture goods, for example, the pace of that district is different. If you're talking about the area with the shops, or that's a different feeling, that's a different story and narrative. Even that's beyond the art style or the purpose of the game. It's just something that you kind of need to narrate through experience, just for your character moving there, getting this this vibe right.
Yeah, I think a good example for people who are watching and not really understanding what we mean by like design language is Stormwind City in World of Warcraft is a perfect example, because like 3 or 4 districts, they're completely different in design language, but they all serve the purpose that they're there for at the same time.
Yes, exactly. And in terms of, when you say modeling or environment art, like you kind of imagine the pictures of the vast landscapes and the huge towers or castles, and like your immediate thoughts are kind of locked into those 3 images that you see all over the internet.
Yeah.
Because those are big, like grand, or environment art is like all those little functional bits that actually take a lot of the design time when producing environments, because especially now, like there are so many people that are really good at pumping high quality assets like really fast.
Yeah.
You can even outsource that. You can do, like, you can get assets, like you can buy those from asset stores. There is so much, but in order for those to make sense, like you need to spend a lot of time giving them purpose, either in terms of shape or in terms of place, or just something that's actually connected to your world in your game. And this actually is there's a lot of work going into that. In our case, we have our writer imagine stories and brief on locations. Then we have the concept artist developing a lot of materials that we can it's not a straightforward process. Like, it's a lot of going back and forth between the different departments. So for example, when we get a story about something, we start drawing, and then the pictures they move back to the story writer. Some of them continue to the 3D team, because like we often end up with a lot of cool stuff to make, and people just want to make those stuff.
I definitely feel you with that one. Yeah.
And some of the assets that are on the spot, they just start being produced, and then for the rest, or for some wider shots or some mood shots, those are often communicated with our writer, and we can sort of enrich the story and make the place look more lived in.
Yeah.
Or deserted. Like, the idea is that to give it a purpose that you're building on top of. You're
kind of trying to fill an ambience almost with the models themselves. And a lot of games have started doing this really well, using the kind of smaller assets to medium assets to kind of lead the player's eye where they want them to be looking and heading, especially like saying deserted areas. It's kind of an open field, for example, where you could roam anywhere, but you still kind of want them to be guided somewhere. And these smaller to medium-sized assets as well are really, really good for a level designer to do that.
Exactly. Like, you're always trying to push the player so he knows where he's going without him actually having to think about it.
Yeah.
So there are always some sort of a guidance, but again, like, you don't want to overdo this too much, because you kind of limit the exploration phase.
Yes.
You just don't want the player to boot up the game, log in, go to a forest, for example, and not know what to do. You always leave some marks, some it's that's in terms of level design. That's in terms of actual just props. You might put something that's really cool and player would like to go and see it. Lighting, that's an insane key part of making the environment either alive or just functioning.
Yes.
Because you don't actually have to make a block that's in your way. Like, this could be a dark place or a light place that you're kind of drawing to the light.
Yeah.
I think you're really correct with mentioning composition as well. That's also like such an important part of the environment, actually feeling like a place that had some background, like backstory to it. And
It's
some time
visual
has passed.
storytelling. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that you kind of need to express how much, like, how long have this place been this place, like some sort of background to it, some backstory, some you know, like you go into, for example, a forest, and like this. It didn't just materialize out of nothing. Like there's probably like thousands of years of rain and erosion. Maybe different people live there. You know, there's all that wear and tear, and you kind of need to capture this while still, you know, being able to tell your story.
Yeah, it's almost like you're building a time capsule of that area. A good example is, I can't remember which game this was, I think it was Arcade. They had a desert, and of course there's no paths through it or anything, and it's pretty bland if you think about a desert, but just like the visual storytelling, such as the cacti that were all over the place, some of them had ripped cloth on it, as if someone had, you know, walked past with robes, and that's a really good way to visually guide players through those areas. In a way that you otherwise wouldn't, because normally you think street lamps or lamp posts or torches or path, and that's normally a really good way to guide them through an area in a way that you want them to see it in that sort of order, because a lot of the time in zones you want players to see it in an order, so maybe from the south up to the north, and get further into it that way. But with an MMO you can't always curate that. So you have to try to do that visually, you know, visually lead the player through it and tell the story that way. So it's definitely a challenge to do, isn't it?
Well, you know, that's, at least in my mind, that's a separate portion of design when you're designing the points of interest. What is important to the narrative, what's important to players, what's important for, you know, just your lore to make sense, and how you connect all of those pillars together into a coherent space, because like it needs to make sense at first glance, and then when you you know, dive deeper into it, you should be able to find all of those interesting, you know, bits and bobs from the lore, from the quests, and like you need to keep in mind that a lot of different people are going to experience this, and some of them do not want like that particular experience. Some of them just care about slaying monsters. The others just go around and try to, you know, find all of the, you know, small bits of information about the certain faction, the place itself, or any lore element. And then you have people that, you know, when you come back from work, you open up the game, you go play for maybe an hour or two, maybe the first couple of quests you read. So like you need to catch their attention and imagination like really quickly for a really short period of time. And then this should not hinder the experience if you're not playing that way after. So you're thinking about all of this at the same time. And I think from an environment point of view, you should be able to tell the big story. You should be able to tell a lot of small stories. And at the end, like, they should look like the same place.
Yeah, look like they belong. You're basically trying to build a sandbox for as many different play styles that people choose as you can, while keeping it coherent in the you know, the overarching story.
Exactly, and we're trying to, you know, get people to stick inside the game for a ton of time. So most of this can actually be seen. Like if you're playing something really quickly, you would not be able to indulge into all of this. But for example, you know, you go in and today you might be playing for 20 hours. Like you need to be interested in spending that much time. Like you shouldn't feel robbed.
Yeah.
In a way.
You should feel like your time's valued in the game that you're playing and that you're getting an experience out of it.
Exactly. And the more time we spend making it, there's a higher chance that you have a better time in and just crafting that experience as much as we can. Of course, there's you cannot plan for everything. Like
trust me, I know that.
Yeah, there's no chance. But I think that sort of breaking the fourth wall, like people are so used to receiving a lot of stimulation and a lot of content and bright colors and just jam-packed with stuff. It could be items, it could be other players, it could be props. You're just constantly bombarded with stuff, and it sort of gets how should I put it?
Overwhelming almost?
No, it gets artificial. There's no person behind that. You're just getting more content, but it doesn't have the same attitude or like life into it. And I think we've grown so much into just having stuff, just having content. Like you go to the store and buy 20,000 assets, but they do not mean much because like the time that you see those for the 20th time, it lacks personality. It just like it lacks touch to it. And what you'd like to see in a game is that someone actually made.
You can see that love was put into it and thought into the end result. Yeah,
exactly. Just see the personality, like the character of the person who was actually making it. And as you all know, especially for such a huge project, you cannot have this asset bank developed like in 2 days time. So it's a matter of you getting some buying some stuff and just playing about, just getting initial Lego blocks while you're producing your own assets. In our case, like we get more and more people involved, and we've used some stuff, and now we're actually trying to recreate the experience ourselves. So we've reached a point where there's something that we like, something that we don't like. We got more lore into that, and we're just trying to sort of make the project live on its own.
To be its own standalone thing.
Yeah, exactly, because you cannot, there's no portion in design where you say, I wanted this. It's more of the project needs this.
Yes.
So I think best case scenario is you make as much as you want as quick as you can, and then see what the actual needs of the project are.
Yes.
And at this stage, you know that you will get on track of hitting all those marks because it's beyond your yourself and your personal desires or issues or however you'd like to call it.
Yeah. Okay. So to wrap it up, what's your kind of opinion on the misconceptions with art pipelines?
Oh, I think it's not as straightforward of a process than it's presented as. There is a lot of going back and forth. So currently, based on questions that I'm getting as well, there is this notion of it actually being a straight line. From someone gives the most amazing of ideas, and then you have a bunch of people drawing, and then this is moved to the people that model, and then it magically appears in an engine and it's perfect from the get-go. Definitely not the case. I think in practice, first of all, you have a lot of people involved, especially in bigger projects. There's like a ton of people working on each, individual scene or piece, depending on the game that you're making. But, in our case, we do a lot of brainstorming. That's kind of a common thing. That's something that you just always do when you have a meeting. So you hear a lot of voices, you hear a lot of people's opinions, and then, you have some ideas that have, are laid down that people start developing, that you get a story about, maybe a character or environment or any particular setting or scenario, and which generally is like really high level thing, then that you start developing artwork for, and you kind of narrow it down as time goes, because it's hard to get something predefined before you've put in enough effort in.
Yeah.
So just the ideas, like those are processes, like generating ideas are a process in itself, which involves multiple entities. So you get the story, you get some artwork in the meantime, you get some level designers do their magic, you get this, kind of dipped into a little bit of numbers and mechanics, because you kind of need to function a certain way when talking about game design stuff. And somewhere along those lines, depending on what you're actually producing, like you can get the 3D guys involved at an earlier stage, so they can provide blockouts, or they can reuse all
like
their
silhouettes
bits.
as well.
Yeah, exactly. So if you've already prepared some meshes that can fit the theme, you can forward those to the 2D guys as well. You can do some blockouts. You can hand those to the level designers or like game designers to play around with, and good ideas tend to stick. So there is a small portion of stuff that you can kind of push forward to post-production, to finalize the piece. But in general, it's just going back and forth. There are a ton of checks that you need to go through in order for something to be, in-game material. And that definitely involves different departments, even marketing stuff. You need to produce, because you wouldn't want to double up on work in perfect world scenario.
Yeah.
So the pieces that you're working on, like you should have some of those be able to be used for, marketing, for example, different purposes. Because, at the end, what kind of bottlenecks the whole pipeline is time.
Yeah.
And you kind of need to do a lot of stuff simultaneously. And this is a lot of talking between different people, different leads, art directors, just general people from said department. So it's not a straightforward thing. I think it's really hard to get it as a straightforward thing.
The misconception about the pipeline being, I guess it's in the name really, isn't it? Just being this straight pipeline of going from A to B to C to D. It confuses me that people think of it like that, because the way that we've done things in our game as well is inspiration has come from different areas, especially in the art team. So, for example, we had a concept artist doing a fantastic concept, and he'd just drawn this weird little creature in the corner of it. And a lot of people think all of this starts as, writing it down on a piece of paper or an idea in your head, and it moves forward from that. Whereas this accidentally started like 4 steps down the line, and then we went right back to the drawing board, and then moved, further back down the pipe. And it's like you say, you're bouncing back and forth between refining the idea, prototyping it, back to refining it, and it's never just a straight A to B.
I'm really easily inspired by those like initial sketches, like rough pieces. When it's mostly shape language, something that's like oddly shaded, because especially, even with, character art and armors and all of those different pieces. Like when you kind of abstract this to a point where it's just a shape, like why this couldn't be a railing, for example. Like you can get a lot of ideas just looking at this. So it's important to give feedback to the people because when you're really focused on making a specific thing, it might work in 10 different places as well. Just dissect it a little bit, and this can feed in to a final really interesting piece from a completely different scenario. So you kind of need to be not too much like into the process in a way that you're just focusing on one small particular detail, but also take a step back and take the time,
the broad spectrum of it.
Zoom out a bit and actually enjoy the thing itself, like enjoy the process. And that's actually important part of the pipeline, because it's a lot of work. It takes a lot of time to make stuff for games, to make the models, to texture, to adjust an engine. So you taking like a half an hour break just to enjoying your colleagues' work is not that much of a loss in time in the bigger picture, because like you'll be making this for like 5 years or 10 years or your entire life. That half an hour that might spark something that you would enjoy working on for 2 months might be a really important piece.
Definitely, yeah.
So have you had this in your process, just kind of trying to reimagine something that you already have?
Yeah, we've done a lot of reimagining with a lot of things, and I would say the skill system is something that we went back to the drawing board on multiple times, like our skill trees. We originally went with a very boring skill tree, kind of like pick one of 3 options and you're locked into that. And then we tested other people's systems that were very similar to how the skill tree worked for like profession, essentially. And that really inspired us to change it. Instead of it being a pick one of 3 options, it was put points into what you prefer to work in, and eventually at max level, you'll have points in everything.
Yeah, so that's actually a really good example, because it's not only art related.
Yeah.
When we're talking about the pipeline, the pipeline is kind of everything. Like it's that living.
It's an iterative process. Yeah.
So it like a piece of clothing can sort of give you ideas about other stuff. Like I'm not trying to say that a nice shoulder piece will change the scope of the game, but just those little interesting bits that can spiral out of control and get some additional bang for their buck.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's all about the time value as well. If you can save some time with certain assets that are being made in certain ways and make them multi-purpose, it definitely saves a lot of time in that pipeline.
And the thing is that making a game is a game in itself. Like you definitely want to have the people hooked into that.
Yes.
And in some cases it's even more interesting than playing the game itself, because when everything's produced, you have the final product, which has its limitation. But while in production, and while you're in your own mind, like in your head, there's no limits to that. So
your imagination is realistically the limit for that, and I think it's one of the great things about game development. It's like you say, it's like playing a game yourself, but you're kind of making the rules up as you go. And I think for anyone who hasn't ever dipped their toes into game development, I think they'd find it quite freeing to give that a go. So yeah, I mean, you have answered all my questions perfectly. So I look forward to seeing your art in Scars of Honor, and thank you very much for sitting and answering my questions.
Thank you. I really enjoyed myself.
Ladies and gents, I think we can agree that interview with Evo was fantastic. Very knowledgeable guy. Like I said earlier, his storytelling through visuals kind of narrative here It's just amazing, and I think more developers can learn from that. It's a big thing that's missing from other games. Now we're moving on to an interview with Mikhail, our lead programmer at BeastBurst and networking guy. Now, this is an interview that I really enjoyed because at the moment, our game, Nightmare World, is currently undergoing a change-up on the networking side, which you'll probably learn a bit more about based off of this interview. So let's get into it.
Right, so I'm here with Misho, the lead programmer of Scars of Honor, and thank you for taking the time to talk with me.
No problem.
So I've actually got a question for you about the programming of an MMO. What's the sort of main challenges that you face that you wouldn't in a regular game?
The main challenge is actually the MMO, because it's a bit different than the single player character games, and overall everything making it asynchronous and thinking like asynchronous meant for creating a game for a lot of people is quite different than the single player games. Sorry, because like I said, one of the things is thinking asynchronous, having a server-based solution which can handle a lot of players.
Like you say, the big difference is you're kind of offloading a lot of the stuff that you would do on a single player game off to a server, and it's kind of, you're thinking in 3 dimensions with an MMO because of authority of servers.
Actually, it's probably then more than 3. Probably it's 4 or 5 or something like that. Because, like I said, working with a single game is just focusing on the player, on the animations and behavior, the mechanics that are happening in the game. But actually, for the MMORPG games, it's quite. It's not so different, but in the same time, it's pretty much different because you need to think and to stay focused on the same stuff which the player will see all the time, 90% of the time, the movement, the animations, the overall the work that the developers and the artists are preparing for a game. But in the same time, you need to think for the server, how the server will handle this, how everything will be considered as a data on it, how it will be transferred from client to server and vice versa, and also to not stall the server.
Yeah. It's like one big jigsaw puzzle essentially that you're putting together. And unfortunately, your kind of job with the networking is a bit of a sad job, purely because if you do your job correctly, nobody knows that you're doing your job.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's pretty thankless work.
Yeah, that is the main problem for the backend developers.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what do you personally like about working on an MMO? Like, what do you find interesting compared to the usual development?
Well, actually, probably it will be strange to say, but actually the networking, the server work, which is giving you opportunity to think like, let's say 10 men at once, working on with the same tools, let's say, and you have to think for, okay, did the first guy finish his work with the first tool so I can take it, or is it using it? Should I lock it in somewhere so he doesn't touch it while I'm using it somewhere? So it is really interesting. Yeah, and of course, the front end of the game, the client side is also pleased to work on, because you see actually how your work is doing. Like you said, the users, the players are not seeing actually the work that is happening on the server, on the back end, but it is the most important stuff for the game.
That's the foundation of an MMO,
Exactly, yeah.
Perfect. What did you find in the first test from 7 months ago that you didn't expect to find, like bugs or just interesting quirks that you weren't aware of?
Actually, the most frustrating thing for me was the server stalling. I think we were prepared for the asynchronous thinking for the server, which will handle a lot of players in it. And after that, just for example, having database query. Database queries are big pain.
Yeah, I've worked with them.
Yeah,
not fun.
You need to wait for, well, of course, if it's not asynchronous, if it's not in a event processor or something like that handled separately, you need to force a query to the database, and after that wait for the response.
Yeah.
If it's completed, if it's not completed, and this thing, even for a millisecond, it stalls the server. And after that, when the next player logs in the game, he expects to receive a lot of packets, a lot of data, but in the same time he is not receiving anything. And damn, okay, I tried to play the game, but I'm not playing it. Why? Why is that happening? And yeah, of course, misunderstanding in everything.
Yeah, I think a common mistake with database queries is a lot of people think to go synchronous because it's the fastest route to, a database call, but then you run into like database locking and then no one's getting their requests back.
One more interesting thing about this is exactly those asynchronous queries that are to the database. Okay, so you can make it asynchronous, synchronous in a separate thread or not, and stuff like that. But the main problem with the asynchronous thinking is you are not sure at what point of the execution you will receive the answer. So you need to prepare for this answer at some point. So
it's
you
like
need
race conditions. You're not sure when you're getting.
Yeah, exactly. It is something like a query stack that you wait actually for the response. You're putting it into the query, and when it's received, it's continuing its work forward.
Yeah, you know the data's coming, but you've got to be prepared for it to come at whatever kind of time.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're not sure if you're gonna receive it this second or the next 5 seconds, let's say.
Yeah. If you're chaining together different functions and whatnot that are like in quick succession, you've got to be prepared for what order they're going to come in.
Exactly. Just imagine creating a character. Okay, so I'm creating the character on the client, I'm sending the data to the server, and the server should work with this data that is received from the client and send it to the database.
Yeah.
In the same time, for example, if you're not having something which is generating a GUIDs in for the characters, you need to receive the ID. This is just an example.
Yeah.
You need to receive the ID from the database, and with this ID, you need after that to return it back to the client. So there is a little bit of waiting time for the client just to receive the correct data.
Yeah, that's. I think that's probably a really good example for that, actually, because I was trying to think of a good example and I couldn't, but that's a perfect one.
Yeah, that is actually one of the common mistakes that we make.
Yeah,
with queries and stuff like that.
Yeah, we had the same thing in our game where the character creation, we ran into quite a few issues with, like you say, synchronous, asynchronous, waiting for stuff, and again, that's another puzzle that you're putting together in. What kind of order do I actually want to receive this back in, and is that how it's gonna work? And for example, loading up the game. If you make it that you press create character and that opens the world, well, you're having to wait for the database to create the character to then be able to create a world and plop the character in there. We had it a bit backwards, and we were opening a world for a character that didn't exist yet.
Exactly.
And the whole server died, pretty much. But yeah. So what features are you testing in the upcoming test? Because I know that you've got we spoke in other interviews about just the sheer amount of things you've done since the last test. So,
well, actually we have completed a lot of work for the upcoming test, and one of the most biggest and interesting features that the users will have fun with it is actually the battles.
Yes.
We're preparing a big fun with battles, with battlegrounds, with events, with NPCs, with creatures, overall everything related to the battles, to the combat will be, for me, not only for me, for the players actually also, will be absolutely interesting and juicy.
I've been told a few sneak previews about combat, and I'm excited to try it out because it seems familiar enough that players are going to be immediately used to it, I would say, but different enough that there's something new there to try, and it's kind of a bit experimental compared to other MMOs, but I think people are going to really enjoy the combat.
Yeah, that is true, and also because I was learning game design and game development, and one of the most important things that our lecturers were saying to us is, okay, you're gonna prepare a game, you're gonna make the design, you're gonna make the development of the game, but what will make your game unique? Is it going to be the same as everyone else is sharing and showing to the communities, to the world, or you will leave a little piece of your heart in this game?
Yeah.
So this is the mind that we need to set for creating a game. It doesn't matter if it's a MMORPG, if it's a single player, if it's a top-down game, or it really doesn't matter. You need to leave a little piece from you in the game.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think that's something that a lot of game developers can learn from.
Yeah.
Because what's the saying? The copy's only ever as good as the original. You're never really going to be better. So having your own, like you say, a piece of you in there is just, it adds like flavour and character to the game. It's not just the same copy-paste kind of template that we keep seeing.
Well, in most of the cases, most of the people's, let's say, they're trying to earn fast money, but for me personally, that's not the point. The point is to bring happiness to the players, happiness and joyful experience in the game, in the thing that you're doing. And actually, it's not only for the game development, for designing, for creating. It is for absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And around the time that this video goes out should be either just before or just after your next test. So I'm excited to jump in and have a go on that, test out the combat properly. I mean, I'm sure I'm going to get to have a little play around here at some point while I'm in the office. But thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and chat with me.
Of course, no problem.
And I hope we get a chance to do it over Discord at some point.
For sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
So there we go. That's the final interview. And I don't know the correct way to wrap up a video like this, because I feel 4 days of just pure action with these guys, chatting to them about the things they're passionate about, is just something that I can't really sum up. But all I want to say is a massive thank you to the BeastBurst Entertainment crew for sending me out there and getting the chance to just chat with them, as well as a massive thank you to you, the patrons, for being able to help support this channel. And until next time, take care.